I still remember the exact moment my Christmas plans fell apart. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 3 days before the office closed for the holidays. Nearly everyone around me was talking about flights home, family dinners, or ski trips. The whole marketing department had already switched into vacation mode. Emails slowed down, meetings got cancelled, and even the coffee machine seemed quieter. I was pretending to work while secretly browsing cheap frozen pizzas online, trying to decide which one looked the least depressing. That was going to be my Christmas. My name is Keith. I'm 26, and until that year I had convinced myself I didn't really care about holidays. My parents had moved overseas years earlier. My younger sister was spending Christmas with her fiancé's family, and most of my friends had disappeared to different states. So I kept telling everyone the same lie. I actually enjoy a quiet Christmas. Nobody questioned it. Nobody except my boss. Wayne had been running our company for almost 6 years. At 34, he was unusually young to be the CEO, but nobody doubted he deserved the position. He was calm under pressure, impossible to read during meetings, and somehow remembered everyone's name despite leading a company with more than 200 employees. Working directly under him wasn't exactly relaxing. He noticed everything. If I looked tired, he'd ask if I was sleeping enough. If I skipped lunch, he'd quietly leave an extra sandwich on my desk after his own meeting. If I solved a difficult project, he always made sure everyone knew I deserved the credit. He was respected by everyone, which made him slightly intimidating. Around 4 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. Wayne, can you stop by my office for a minute? My first thought was that I'd forgotten something important. Maybe I'd sent the wrong presentation. Maybe one of our clients had complained. I grabbed my notebook and walked across the office, trying not to imagine the worst. His office door was open. Wayne looked up from his laptop and smiled. Keith, come in. I sat across from him, notebook already open. You don't need notes, he said with a small laugh. Old habit. I like that habit. There was a short silence while he closed his computer. So, he said, folding his hands together, what are you doing for Christmas? I blinked. That wasn't the question I expected. Oh, I know. Terrifying interview question. I smiled. Honestly? Not much. Not much? I'll probably stay in the city. No family visiting? I shook my head. No. He studied my face for a second longer than most people would. And your friends? They all escaped before the snow. He nodded slowly. I figured. You figured? I asked Hannah where everyone was spending Christmas. I laughed. You investigated me? I gathered information. That's a nicer way of saying it. It is. I expected the conversation to end there. Instead, he leaned back in his chair. My parents asked me to invite you. I stared at him. I'm sorry, what? They're hosting Christmas at our house. I was certain I had misunderstood him. They asked you to invite me? I mentioned one of my employees would probably spend Christmas alone. And they immediately adopted me? They're kind of like that. I couldn't think of anything to say. Wayne looked almost amused by my complete silence. You don't have to answer now. They'll be disappointed. You already told them yes? I told them I'd ask. I rubbed the back of my neck. This is incredibly nice. It is. But you think you'd be intruding? I looked at him. Exactly. You wouldn't. I barely know your family. They know plenty about you. That caught me completely off guard. What do you mean? Wayne smiled. My mother asks about everyone from work. You talk about work that much? I complain occasionally. You complain about me? I mostly compliment you. I wasn't prepared for that answer. You've become my mother's favorite employee. She has a favorite employee? Apparently. That's concerning. It's adorable. He laughed quietly. Then his expression softened. You really don't have anywhere else to go, do you? The question wasn't cruel. It wasn't pity. It was simply honest. I looked down at my notebook. No. Another few seconds passed. You'd make my mother very happy. And you? He looked surprised by the question. What about me? Would you actually want me there? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked directly into my eyes. Yes. Just one word. Simple. Certain. Something about the way he said it stayed with me. I cleared my throat. I don't even know what your family celebrates. Too much food. I can handle that. My dad starts decorating the house in November. I've never met anyone like that. You will. His smile became slightly wider. My younger brother will challenge you to board games. I lose almost every board game. He'll love that. And your mother? She'll ask you about your entire life before dessert. I laughed again. You're not exactly selling this. I know. But you're still considering it. He wasn't wrong. I was. Because the alternative was eating frozen pizza alone while pretending not to care that it was Christmas. Wayne reached into a drawer. This is our address. He slid a small card across the desk. No pressure. I picked it up. His last name was printed neatly underneath the address. I realized something strange. For almost 2 years, everyone at work simply called him Wayne. Seeing his family name somehow made him feel like a real person outside the office. I'll drive, he said. You don't have to. I know. I have a car. I also know. I could follow you. You could. But I'd rather we drive together. There was that word again. Rather. Not easier. Not practical. Rather. I folded the card carefully and slipped it into my notebook. I'll come. His shoulders relaxed almost immediately. I was hoping you'd say that. So was your mother. He smiled. You have no idea. As I stood to leave, Wayne stopped me. Keith? Yeah? I'm glad you won't be alone this Christmas. For some reason, that simple sentence stayed with me for the rest of the afternoon. Not because it sounded romantic. Not because it meant anything beyond kindness. But because it had been a very long time since someone seemed genuinely relieved that I wouldn't be spending Christmas by myself. The next 2 days passed much slower than they should have. I kept wondering if I'd made a mistake. Not because I didn't want to go. Because spending Christmas with my boss's family sounded like something that only happened in movies. Every time I imagined arriving at their house, my brain immediately created new reasons why this was a terrible idea. What if they only invited me because they felt sorry for me? What if I made everyone uncomfortable? What if Wayne realized halfway through the evening that bringing an employee home for Christmas had been a huge mistake? By Friday afternoon, I had almost convinced myself to text him and cancel. Then Hannah stopped by my desk. So? I looked up. So? Wayne told me. I immediately sighed. Of course he did. He actually didn't. No? His mom called the office. I stared at her. His mom called the office? To make sure you weren't allergic to anything. I blinked twice. You're kidding. I wish I were. She laughed so hard she nearly dropped the folder she was carrying. She asked the receptionist if Keith liked turkey. Oh no. Oh yes. I covered my face with one hand. This is so embarrassing. It's adorable. It absolutely isn't. It absolutely is. She leaned against my desk. You know they're genuinely excited you're coming, right? How do you know that? Because Wayne has been smiling all week. I frowned. He smiles all the time. No. What? He smiles professionally. I don't know what that means. It means polite. And now? Now he smiles like he's looking forward to something. I shook my head. You're imagining things. Maybe. She grinned. But maybe not. Before I could answer, Wayne appeared near the elevators. Ready? I looked at the clock. 5 o'clock. Everyone else had already started leaving. I guess so. He carried 2 travel mugs. I made coffee. You made coffee? I know how. I'm impressed. I'll try not to let the promotion go to my head. Hannah looked between us with an expression I couldn't quite understand. Then she smiled. Have a good Christmas. You too, Wayne answered. As we walked toward the parking garage, snow drifted lazily across the sidewalks. The city already looked different. Stores had closed early. Christmas lights reflected across fresh snow. For once, everything felt quiet. Wayne unlocked a dark SUV that looked far too clean for winter. You keep your car spotless. I wash it. In December? I have issues. I was beginning to suspect. He laughed as we climbed inside. The heater was already running. Nice. I started it remotely. Show off. I've been called worse. The drive out of the city took almost 40 minutes. Traffic became lighter with every mile. Buildings slowly disappeared. Neighborhoods grew quieter. Eventually we turned onto a road lined with enormous pine trees wrapped in white lights. I couldn't stop looking out the window. This is beautiful. It gets even better. It does? You'll see. 5 minutes later we turned into a long driveway. I actually laughed. You've got to be kidding. The house looked like something from a Christmas card. Warm lights glowed behind every window. Garlands wrapped around the porch. Lanterns lined the walkway. A giant wreath hung from the front door. Whoever decorated this place clearly loved Christmas more than anyone I'd ever met. Wayne looked over at me. Told you. I thought you were exaggerating. I was actually underselling it. Before I could answer, the front door flew open. A woman hurried outside without even putting on a coat. Wayne! His mother. She hugged him before he had both feet on the porch. Then she looked at me. Her entire face lit up. You must be Keith. I barely had time to answer before she wrapped me in a hug too. I'm Linda. It's really nice to meet you. We're so happy you're here. I smiled awkwardly. Thank you for inviting me. Nonsense. She took my arm immediately. Come inside before you freeze. Wayne quietly grabbed both overnight bags while his mother practically escorted me through the front door. The smell hit me instantly. Fresh cookies. Cinnamon. Pine. Something roasting in the kitchen. It smelled exactly how Christmas should smell. Oh, I said without thinking. Linda smiled proudly. I know. The entrance hall was already full of decorations. Stockings. Family photos. Old ornaments covering nearly every surface. None of it looked expensive. It simply looked loved. A tall man appeared from another room. You finally made it. He walked straight toward Wayne before pulling him into a quick hug. Then he turned to me. So this is Keith. His handshake was warm and firm. I'm Robert. Nice to meet you. We've heard a lot about you. I looked toward Wayne. You really do talk about work. He looked almost embarrassed. Sometimes. Robert laughed. Only every dinner. Wayne groaned. Dad? What? You do. I discuss projects. You discuss Keith. I felt my face getting warm. I don't think I've ever been discussed at dinner. Robert smiled. Well, you have now. Footsteps echoed from upstairs. A younger man came racing down the stairs wearing thick socks that nearly sent him sliding across the hardwood floor. He caught himself at the last second. Nice save, Wayne said. I planned that. You absolutely didn't. The younger man grinned before looking at me. You must be Keith. I'm Evan, Wayne's younger brother. He looked enough like Wayne to make the family resemblance obvious, but he smiled much more easily. So, he crossed his arms dramatically. I've heard you're terrible at board games. I slowly turned toward Wayne. You told him that? I might have. I haven't even played against him. You admitted it in my office. That conversation was confidential. It really wasn't. Everyone laughed. Within 10 minutes I somehow found myself sitting in the living room with hot chocolate in my hands while Linda kept bringing out more cookies than 4 people could possibly eat. You don't have to keep feeding me. Oh, I absolutely do. I've already had 3. So? I'll explode. We have room. Wayne sat beside me on the couch. Don't argue. You've tried? My entire life. And? I lost. Linda overheard him. You still lose. See? I laughed into my mug. Something strange happened over the next hour. I stopped feeling like a guest. Nobody treated me like Wayne's employee. Nobody asked awkward questions. Nobody made me explain why I wasn't with my own family. Instead, they simply included me. Robert asked about my favorite movies. Evan wanted recommendations for hiking trails. Linda insisted I help decorate gingerbread cookies despite warning everyone she wasn't artistic. At one point I caught Wayne watching the room. Not participating. Just quietly observing while everyone talked over one another. When our eyes met, he smiled. Not the polite smile Hannah had described. Something much softer. Almost relieved. He walked over while everyone else argued about whether gingerbread houses counted as architecture. Doing okay? I nodded. Better than okay. I thought you might. I looked around the room. His mother was laughing. His father was pretending not to steal cookies. His brother was dramatically defending his gingerbread roof after it collapsed. The entire house felt warm. Safe. Alive. Then I looked back at Wayne. You knew exactly what you were doing. What do you mean? You knew I'd never feel like an outsider here. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced toward his family. Then back at me. I hoped you wouldn't. That evening settled into something I hadn't experienced in years. Comfort. Not the kind that comes from being alone in your own apartment. The kind that comes from sitting in a room where people are talking over each other, laughing at old stories you've never heard before, and somehow still making sure you're part of every conversation. Dinner wasn't served until nearly 8. Linda apologized for the delay at least 5 times. The roast takes forever. Robert smiled. You've been saying that every Christmas since I met you. And I've been right every Christmas. Wayne leaned toward me. They've had this exact conversation for 29 years. I believe it. You'll hear it again tomorrow. I probably will. The dining table was enormous. There were far more chairs than people. Family photos filled one wall, showing Christmas after Christmas stretching back decades. Little Wayne appeared in nearly every picture. Always standing awkwardly. Always looking slightly uncomfortable whenever someone pointed a camera at him. I couldn't help smiling. What? Wayne followed my eyes. Oh no. You had braces. I did. And glasses. I know. You looked adorable. He looked horrified. Don't tell my mother you said that. Too late. Linda looked up immediately. What did Keith say? He said nothing. I said your son looked adorable. Wayne closed his eyes. I trusted you. Linda laughed. I've been saying that for years. Robert nodded seriously. He was an extremely serious 12-year-old. I was not. You organized your Christmas presents by size before opening them. I liked efficiency. Evan nearly choked laughing. You still do? Wayne looked at me. This family shares too much. I've noticed. Dinner somehow lasted almost 3 hours. Not because people ate slowly. Because every story created 3 more stories. Robert told everyone about the year Wayne accidentally burned Christmas cookies while trying to help. I was 13. You insisted you understood chemistry. I understood chemistry. Apparently not baking. Wayne sighed dramatically. I knew inviting Keith here would eventually backfire. It already has, Evan said. I laughed harder than I had in months. Maybe longer. At some point Linda disappeared into the kitchen. She returned carrying a stack of wrapped presents. I frowned. What are those? Christmas Eve presents. For everyone. Wayne looked at me. I forgot to warn you. I didn't bring anything. Linda immediately waved that concern away. Absolutely not. I wasn't expecting. I know. She placed one gift in front of me. We bought yours yesterday. I stared at the small package. You really didn't have to. We wanted to. My throat suddenly felt tight. Nobody had bought me a Christmas present in several years. Not because anyone had forgotten. There just hadn't been anyone around to exchange gifts with. Wayne quietly picked up his own present. Open it. Inside mine was a dark green wool scarf. Soft. Warm. Exactly my favorite color. I looked up. How did you know? Linda smiled. I asked Wayne. I slowly turned toward him. You noticed my favorite color? He looked slightly embarrassed. You wear it a lot. I do. You own 3 green sweaters. You counted? No. You absolutely counted. He laughed. I may have noticed. I ran my hand across the scarf again. It's perfect. Linda looked incredibly pleased. I knew it. Later that night, after everyone had drifted toward different rooms, I stepped outside onto the back porch. Snow had started falling again. Everything was quiet except for the wind moving through the trees. The cold air felt refreshing after the warmth inside. You disappeared. I turned. Wayne stepped outside carrying 2 mugs. I guess you might want tea. You guessed right. He handed me one. For a while either of us spoke. We simply watched snow settle across the backyard. I needed this, I admitted. The tea? This. I gestured toward the house. The noise. The family. The feeling. Wayne nodded. I thought you might. I didn't realize how lonely I'd been. The words escaped before I could stop them. I wasn't trying to be. I know. I searched for the right explanation. You get used to being alone. You do. And then suddenly you're somewhere like this. And you remember what you've been missing. I looked at him. Exactly. He wrapped both hands around his mug. I worried you'd say no. I almost did. I'm glad you didn't. So am I. We stood there another minute. Then I asked something that had been quietly bothering me all evening. Can I ask you something? Always. Why me? He looked genuinely confused. What do you mean? You could have invited anyone. I invited you. I know. But why? His answer came almost immediately. Because I didn't want you spending Christmas alone. That's kind. It's also true. I smiled. I believe you. He looked down at the snow-covered steps. Can I tell you something? Of course. When I first started this company. He paused. I spent my first Christmas here completely by myself. I looked at him, surprised. I thought your family lived nearby. They do. But I chose work. You worked Christmas? I thought success was more important. He laughed quietly. My mother drove to my apartment anyway. She sounds persistent. She brought enough food for 20 people. I can believe that. She looked around my apartment and said something I'll never forget. What? Nobody should spend Christmas pretending they don't mind being alone. The words settled between us. I looked back toward the glowing windows. I think she was right. So do I. A comfortable silence followed. Not awkward. Just peaceful. Finally, Wayne smiled. My mother also said something else. What? If you ever meet someone who's spending Christmas alone, bring them home. I looked at him. So that's why. That's why. I couldn't help smiling. Your mother is a remarkable woman. She really is. Inside the house, someone shouted Wayne's name. Probably Evan. Probably because another board game had somehow become a competitive event. Wayne laughed. We're being summoned. I'm guessing your brother is losing. He usually is. You sound confident. I've had 28 years of practice. As we stepped back inside, the warmth immediately surrounded us again. Linda looked up from the living room. There you are. We were outside. I know. She smiled knowingly before turning back toward the game. I caught Wayne raising one eyebrow. What was that look? I have absolutely no idea. Somehow I wasn't convinced. And judging by the amused expression on his face, neither was he. The rest of the evening quickly turned into complete chaos. Apparently, Christmas Eve in Wayne's family always ended with board games. Not one. Several. According to Evan, this wasn't a tradition. It is a tournament. Robert nodded seriously. There are standings. Linda disappeared into a cabinet and returned carrying a worn notebook. You actually keep score? For the last 15 years. I stared at her. 15? We're very committed. Wayne leaned toward me. This is the part where you should be nervous. I thought your brother said I was terrible. He did. Then why would I be nervous? Because losing has consequences. I looked at him. What kind of consequences? Evan grinned. The winner picks breakfast. That doesn't sound terrible. The loser helps shovel snow. I glanced through the window. Fresh snow had been falling for hours. Oh. Exactly. We split into teams. Completely by accident. Or at least that's what everyone claimed. Linda immediately paired Robert with Evan. That leaves. Her eyes landed on Wayne. Then me. Oh. Wayne laughed. Mom. What? You planned this. I have no idea what you're talking about. Robert didn't even try to hide his smile. Neither do I. You are both terrible liars, Wayne muttered. Linda clapped her hands together. Everyone sit. The first game lasted almost an hour. I was exactly as bad as promised. I apologize in advance, I said after making my third terrible move. Wayne looked at the board. I noticed. I warned you. You absolutely did. But, I'm still glad you're on my team. Something about the way he said it made me smile. Evan immediately pointed across the table. I saw that. Saw what? Wayne asked. That smile. What smile? The one you only do when. Robert cleared his throat loudly. Evan stopped talking. Wayne slowly looked at his brother. When I only do what? Evan suddenly found the game board fascinating. Nothing. I don't believe you. You shouldn't. Linda hid another smile behind her mug. By the end of the second game, Wayne and I somehow managed to win. Mostly because Wayne was remarkably good at strategy. I carried us, he admitted. You absolutely did. I contributed moral support. You contributed confusion. I kept the other team guessing. That is technically true. Robert laughed. I like Keith. I do too, Linda answered. I looked down at the board to hide another smile. Nobody had ever said something like that so casually. So naturally. As if I'd already been part of the family longer than one evening. Eventually everyone started getting tired. Robert stretched before standing. I think that's enough competition for one night. Evan immediately protested. I was about to make a comeback. You've been saying that for 2 hours. It was building. It wasn't. Linda started collecting mugs. I'll finish these. I'll help, I said automatically. Nonsense. I don't mind. I know. She handed me 2 empty plates anyway. Then come keep me company. The kitchen felt peaceful compared to the noisy living room. She rinsed dishes while I dried them. For a minute neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. You're exactly how Wayne described you. I looked up. He describes me a lot. He worries about people. I've noticed. You especially. I wasn't sure what to say. She placed another plate beside me. My oldest son carries too much responsibility. He seems to handle it. He does. She sighed softly. But handling something and sharing it are different. I nodded. I suppose they are. He doesn't let many people close. That sentence lingered in the quiet kitchen. I've always wondered why. Linda smiled sadly. When you're responsible for everyone else. She dried her hands. You sometimes forget you're allowed to lean on someone too. I looked toward the living room. Wayne was helping his father pack away one of the games while laughing at something Evan had said. He looked relaxed. Different from the man I knew at work. I've never seen him like this. Like what? So. I searched for the right word. Light. She followed my gaze. This is his favorite place. I can understand why. She looked back at me. You help with that. I do? He smiles more after work now. I felt my cheeks warm. I think that's just because business has been going well. Linda laughed quietly. Oh, sweetheart. She patted my arm. It isn't business. Before I could respond, Wayne appeared in the doorway. There you two are. Linda immediately smiled. We're talking. I noticed. About you. Wayne sighed dramatically. I had a feeling. You should. He looked at me. Should I be worried? Probably. I knew it. Linda laughed. Oh, stop. She gently pushed him toward the hallway. Go show Keith where he'll be sleeping. Wayne picked up my overnight bag. This way. The upstairs hallway was quieter. Family photographs lined every wall. Birthdays. Vacations. Christmas after Christmas. One photo caught my attention. Wayne looked about 16. He had one arm around Evan while both of them stood beside a snowman that leaned suspiciously to one side. You still have braces there. He groaned. You found another one. I wasn't looking. They're everywhere. They really are. He opened the last door on the left. This is the guest room. I stepped inside. It was warm, comfortable, and already prepared. Fresh blankets. Extra pillows. A small basket with toiletries. Even a handwritten note on the nightstand. We're so happy you're here. Sleep well. Love, Linda. I picked up the card. Your mother thought of everything. She usually does. For a moment we simply stood there. The hallway was quiet. Everyone else remained downstairs. This has been. I struggled to finish the sentence. I know. No. I looked at him. You don't. He waited. I don't remember the last time I felt this welcome. His expression softened. I'm glad. No. I smiled. I'm grateful. He looked away for just a second before meeting my eyes again. I'm grateful you came. Neither of us spoke after that. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It simply lasted a little longer than either of us seemed ready to break. Finally, Wayne smiled. Get some sleep. I will. We have breakfast at 8. Strict schedule? My mother. Of course. He reached the doorway, then stopped. Keith? Yeah? Merry Christmas. I smiled back. Merry Christmas, Wayne. After he closed the door, I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. The house was quiet now. I could hear distant laughter downstairs. Someone was humming a Christmas song. Floorboards creaked softly as people got ready for bed. It didn't feel like I was staying in a stranger's house anymore. It felt strangely safe. And as I looked out the window at the snow falling across Wayne's family home, one thought kept returning to me. For the first time in years, I was actually looking forward to Christmas morning. I woke up before anyone else. At least, that's what I thought. The house was completely still. Soft morning light filtered through the curtains, reflecting off the fresh snow outside. For a few peaceful seconds, I forgot where I was. Then the smell reached me. Coffee. Fresh cinnamon rolls. Bacon. I smiled before I was even fully awake. Christmas morning. After getting dressed, I quietly stepped into the hallway. The staircase creaked beneath my feet. From somewhere downstairs came the soft sound of Christmas music. Not loud. Just enough to fill the silence. When I reached the kitchen, Wayne was already there. He stood at the coffee machine wearing a dark green sweater and jeans, looking far more relaxed than the sharply dressed CEO I saw every weekday. He turned as I entered. Morning. Morning. You sleep okay? Better than I have in months. He smiled. I was hoping you would. He handed me a mug before I even asked. I remembered. Remembered what? You take your coffee with 1 sugar. I accepted the mug. You notice everything. It's part of my job. I don't think my coffee order is. He laughed. No, it isn't. For a minute we stood quietly in the kitchen. Outside, snow continued falling in slow, lazy flakes. The whole world seemed peaceful. You always wake up this early? I asked. Usually. Even on Christmas? I like having the house to myself for a little while. I get that. He leaned against the counter. I used to hide down here. You hid? When I was a kid. Why? My brother woke everyone up at 6 every Christmas. I laughed. And you didn't appreciate that? I appreciated sleeping. So what happened? My mother always found me. Of course she did. Every single year. Almost on cue, footsteps echoed upstairs. Wayne sighed. Here we go. A second later, Evan practically flew down the stairs. Merry Christmas! Wayne looked at me. See? You weren't exaggerating. I rarely do. Within 5 minutes, the quiet house transformed into cheerful chaos. Linda appeared wearing a festive apron. Robert carried 3 boxes of ornaments that apparently still hadn't found permanent homes. Someone turned the music louder. Someone else started laughing. By 8:30 the entire house was awake. Breakfast took nearly another hour. Every few minutes Linda insisted someone needed another cinnamon roll. Robert kept pretending he was too full before accepting another one anyway. Evan claimed pancakes tasted better on Christmas. Nobody argued with him. Wayne quietly poured me more coffee. You've barely touched breakfast. I've already eaten enough for 2 days. My mother doesn't believe that's possible. I've noticed. Linda looked over immediately. I heard that. Wayne smiled into his coffee. Told you. After breakfast, everyone migrated into the living room. The Christmas tree looked even more impressive in daylight. Dozens of wrapped presents surrounded the base. I instinctively stepped back. I really shouldn't. Linda interrupted before I could finish. You're opening presents with us. I already received one yesterday. So did everyone else. She pointed toward the couch. Sit. There wasn't really any room for argument. Gift opening turned out to be surprisingly entertaining. Robert received another set of woodworking tools despite insisting he already owned everything. Evan unwrapped hiking equipment and immediately started planning spring trips. Wayne opened several books, a new leather notebook, and what looked like homemade cookies carefully wrapped by one of the neighbors. Then Linda picked up another present. This one's for Keith. I looked around. There are more? One more. She handed me a flat package. Inside was a framed photograph. Not an expensive one. Just a simple wooden frame. The picture had clearly been taken the night before. All 5 of us stood in front of the Christmas tree. Someone had caught us laughing. None of us were looking at the camera. Instead, we were looking at each other. When Evan took it, Linda said proudly. I printed it this morning. I stared at the picture. You printed it overnight? I couldn't wait. My throat tightened. It's beautiful. She smiled. Now you have proof you spent Christmas with us. I looked around the room. Nobody seemed to think the gesture was unusual. To them, it probably wasn't. To me, it meant far more than they could possibly know. Wayne quietly leaned closer. My mother likes making memories tangible. I can see that. I have photo albums going back 30 years. I believe it. Linda suddenly stood. Coats. Everyone looked up. Why? We're going outside. Robert laughed. I knew this was coming. For what? Linda looked at me as if the answer were obvious. Snow. Within minutes, everyone was bundled into coats, scarves, and boots. The backyard looked magical. Fresh, untouched snow covered everything. The trees sparkled beneath a pale winter sun. Evan immediately scooped up a handful of snow. Wayne pointed at him. Don't. I haven't done anything. You've thought about it. I have. I can tell. I laughed. You two have this conversation every year, don't you? Robert answered first. Every year. Almost before he finished speaking, a snowball sailed across the yard. It missed Wayne completely. Mostly because he'd expected it. I warned you, Wayne called. You absolutely did, Evan admitted. Then complete chaos erupted. Snowballs flew in every direction. Robert betrayed everyone equally. Linda laughed so hard she could barely throw hers. I tried hiding behind a tree. It didn't work. Wayne eventually joined me there, brushing snow from his sleeve. I see you've discovered my family is competitive. This isn't competition. No, this is survival. He laughed. Fair point. For a moment we simply watched the others. Evan had somehow convinced Robert to help build a snow fort. Linda was taking pictures of absolutely everything. Wayne looked unusually peaceful. You know, I said quietly. What? I was worried this would feel awkward. And? It doesn't. I'm glad. No. I looked at him. I mean, it feels strangely familiar. His expression softened. My family has that effect on people. I think it's more than that. What do you mean? I hesitated. Then smiled. It feels like I've known them longer than 24 hours. Wayne looked toward his parents. My mother would probably say that's because she decided you belonged the moment you walked through the front door. And you? He looked back at me. I think she was right. Neither of us spoke after that. Behind us, Evan shouted that someone was cheating. Robert denied everything. Linda kept laughing while taking another photograph. The house stood quietly behind us, warm against the bright white snow. For the first time in a very long while, Christmas didn't feel like something I had simply survived. It felt like somewhere I wanted to stay. The afternoon passed slowly, in the best possible way. Nobody seemed to be in a hurry. Lunch blended into conversations, conversations blended into coffee, and every now and then someone would suggest another walk outside just to admire the snow. At one point I found myself helping Robert stack firewood on the covered back porch. I appreciate the help, he said. I feel like I should be doing something. He smiled. You already are. I am? You've made this house louder. I laughed. I don't think that was me. Oh, it was. He placed another log onto the stack. Wayne laughs differently when he's relaxed. I looked over. Through the kitchen window I could see Wayne helping his mother decorate another tray of cookies. He had flour on one sleeve. Linda was pretending not to notice while secretly adding more frosting than the recipe probably recommended. I've never seen him outside work, I admitted. Robert nodded. Very different man. I've noticed. He cares too much. About work? About everyone. That sounded familiar. I've seen that. Robert looked at me for a long moment. You know. He rested one hand on the wooden railing. He almost didn't invite you. I frowned. I thought your wife said she asked him to. She did. But he worried it might make you uncomfortable. I smiled. That sounds like him. He kept saying, what if Keith thinks I'm crossing a line? I laughed quietly. And I almost said no because I thought I'd be crossing one. Robert chuckled. You two spend a remarkable amount of time worrying about each other. Before I could answer, the back door opened. There you are. Wayne stepped outside carrying 2 pairs of gloves. My mother says you're both working too hard. Robert looked offended. We stacked wood. You stacked 12 logs. It was exhausting. Wayne handed me a pair of gloves anyway. Come on. Where? My brother has another idea. I don't trust that sentence. You shouldn't. Sure enough, Evan had another project. He stood in the middle of the backyard with a measuring tape. What exactly are you doing? Wayne asked. We're building a snowman. Wayne looked around. I see that. No. Evan pointed dramatically. We're building the biggest snowman this family has ever made. Robert sighed. Here we go. An hour later, all 5 of us were covered in snow. The snowman had somehow become enormous. Robert insisted the head wasn't proportional. Linda argued that personality mattered more than proportions. Evan kept adding accessories. Wayne quietly fixed structural problems without announcing he was doing it. I couldn't stop laughing. At one point I slipped slightly while rolling another section. Before I could regain my balance, Wayne caught my arm. You okay? Yeah. You sure? I'm fine. He let go immediately. Good. It was such a small moment. Natural. Almost instinctive. But something about the concern in his voice stayed with me. Later, while everyone admired the finished snowman, Linda disappeared into the house. She returned carrying her camera. Nobody move. Robert immediately groaned. We've been moving all day. Exactly. She lined us up beside the snowman. Robert on one side. Evan on the other. Wayne and I ended up standing next to each other in the middle. Smile. The camera clicked. Then clicked again. And again. Linda lowered it, studying the screen. Perfect. Evan leaned over. Let me see. No. Why? I'll print them first. Wayne laughed. Mom. What? You printed one this morning? I can print more. Robert looked at me. She'll send you home with an entire album if you're not careful. I believe you. As everyone headed back toward the house, I stayed behind for a moment. The backyard was quiet again. The giant snowman stood proudly in the fading afternoon light. Footsteps crunched behind me. Wayne. You disappeared. Just for a minute. He stood beside me. Neither of us spoke immediately. The sun had started setting. Everything around us glowed soft gold against the snow. I don't think I've said thank you enough. You've said it. Not enough. You don't know me anything. I know. But your family. I looked toward the house. They've treated me like I belonged here forever. Wayne watched the light reflecting across the snow. They're good people. They are. Another quiet moment passed. Then he said something so softly I almost missed it. They already think you fit in. I looked at him. What? My mom asked me this morning if you'd be coming next Christmas. I stared at him. You're joking. I wish I were. What did you tell her? He smiled. I told her she was getting ahead of herself. And she told me she rarely gets these things wrong. I laughed. She's determined. Very. He looked at the house for another second. Truthfully. His voice became quieter. I didn't realize how much I wanted you here until I saw you with everyone. I met his eyes. And? He smiled, almost shyly. And it feels exactly like I hoped it would. Something warm settled in my chest. Not because it sounded romantic. Not yet. Because it sounded honest. Completely honest. The back door opened again. Linda leaned outside. You too. We both turned. Come inside before dinner gets cold. Wayne smiled. We're coming. As we walked back together through the fresh snow, I realized something that surprised me. When Wayne had invited me a few days earlier, I'd assumed he was simply doing a kind thing for an employee. Now, after spending nearly 2 days with him outside the office, I wasn't so sure that kindness was the whole reason anymore. Dinner that night felt different. Not because anything dramatic had happened. Because I had stopped feeling like I needed to be careful. The nervousness I'd carried with me when I first arrived had quietly disappeared somewhere between cinnamon rolls, snowball fights, and Wayne laughing so hard he nearly dropped a tray of cookies. Now I simply belong. At least, that's how it felt. Linda had prepared far too much food again. I made leftovers on purpose, she announced proudly. Robert laughed. You've been making leftovers on purpose since 1998. And has anyone complained? No. Exactly. Wayne looked at me. Don't make the mistake of saying you're full. I've learned. Good. You'll still be fed, I figured. Dinner stretched late into the evening. Outside, darkness settled over the snowy neighborhood, and lights from nearby houses twinkled through the trees. Inside, the fireplace crackled softly while everyone drifted into another long conversation. This time, the topic somehow became childhood memories. Evan pointed across the table. Keith. Oh? What were you like as a kid? I laughed. Quieter. Then now? I'm actually not that talkative. Wayne raised one eyebrow. Depends. On? The person. I looked at him. You've analyzed this? I observe people. That's still analyzing. Robert smiled. Occupational hazard. I shook my head. I mostly read books. As a kid? Linda asked. As a teenager. As an adult. Wayne nodded. That part hasn't changed. I smiled. You've noticed. I notice a lot. For some reason, those simple words lingered. Later, after dessert, Linda disappeared upstairs. When she returned, she carried several thick photo albums. Oh no, Wayne muttered. His mother ignored him completely. It's tradition. Robert accepted the first album without protest. Evan immediately reached for another. Linda placed the last one directly in front of me. You should see these. Wayne sighed dramatically. I'm leaving. No, you're not, Linda answered. You absolutely are not. He stayed. The first album covered almost 20 years of Christmases. Tiny Wayne building snow forts. Wayne learning to ride a bicycle. Wayne proudly holding up a science fair ribbon. Wayne standing awkwardly in a school choir. He really never liked cameras, I said. Nope, Evan answered. He still doesn't. I've noticed. Wayne leaned over slightly. I tolerated them. You frowned in every picture. I was concentrating. On what? Being photographed. I laughed. I don't think that's how photos work. The next album included college years, graduation, family vacations, holiday dinners. One picture caught my attention. Wayne looked much younger, sitting alone on a tiny apartment couch beside a miniature Christmas tree. No presents. No decorations beyond a single strand of lights. The smile on his face looked forced. I remembered what he told me the night before. His first Christmas away from home. Alone. Linda noticed where I was looking. That one always makes me sad. Wayne reached over and gently closed the album. I was stubborn. You were lonely, Linda corrected softly. He smiled. I was both. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Robert quietly changed the subject. So. He looked at me. What do your parents do? The conversation moved naturally after that. I talked about growing up in a smaller town. About my parents moving overseas. About visiting them less often than I'd planned. Nobody interrupted. Nobody offered pity. They simply listened. When I finished, Linda reached across the table and lightly squeezed my hand. They're very lucky to have you. I smiled. I think I'm the lucky one. Her eyes became suspiciously shiny. Oh dear. Robert laughed. Here it comes. What? My wife cries during every Christmas. I do not. You absolutely do. I get emotional. You cried over wrapping paper once. It was beautiful wrapping paper. Everyone laughed. Even Linda. Eventually the conversation drifted toward movies, then music, then plans for New Year's. Hours passed without anyone noticing. Around 10 o'clock people slowly started standing. Robert stretched. I officially declare myself tired. I second that, Linda said. Evan yawned dramatically. I'm exhausted from winning. You lost, Wayne reminded him. I lost strategically. That's not a thing. It is now. Everyone disappeared upstairs one by one. I stayed behind to help clear the last few mugs. Wayne joined me without saying anything. We worked quietly. Comfortably. You don't have to help, I said. I know. You've done enough hosting. I'm not hosting. No? I'm just cleaning. I smiled. Fair enough. The dishwasher hummed softly once we finished. For a moment, neither of us moved. The kitchen lights were lower now. The rest of the house had gone quiet. You leave tomorrow? His voice sounded almost reluctant. Yeah. Back to reality. I suppose. He leaned one shoulder against the counter. I'm going to miss this. I looked at him. The holidays? He shook his head slightly. No. The silence that followed felt heavier than any we'd shared before. Finally he smiled, though it seemed smaller somehow. I'm going to miss having you here. I wasn't prepared for how much that simple sentence affected me. I'll miss being here. He looked at me for another long second. Keith. Before he could continue, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Linda appeared carrying another blanket. There you are. She smiled between us. I thought everyone had disappeared. We were just talking, Wayne answered. I can see that. She looked suspiciously pleased for reasons I couldn't quite understand. Don't stay up too late. We won't. She disappeared again. Wayne let out a quiet laugh. My mother has incredible timing. I've noticed. He rubbed the back of his neck. I should probably say goodnight. Probably. Neither of us moved. Then, almost at the same moment, we both laughed. What? I asked. We keep having conversations that don't seem to want to end. I smiled. They don't? He looked at me with that same warm expression I'd caught several times over the past 2 days. The one that looked nothing like his professional smile. Good night, Keith. Good night, Wayne. As I climbed the stairs, I found myself smiling without realizing it. Because somewhere between arriving as his employee and spending Christmas with his family, Wayne had quietly become something much more important to me. I just wasn't ready to admit exactly what that was yet. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because the bed wasn't comfortable. Quite the opposite. Everything about the house had become familiar in just 2 days. The quiet hallway. The faint scent of pine drifting through the vents. The occasional creak of old wooden floors. It already felt strange knowing I'd be leaving in the morning. When I came downstairs after packing my bag, the kitchen was already full. Linda was wrapping sandwiches in foil. Robert was loading dishes into the dishwasher. Evan looked half asleep, leaning against the refrigerator with a mug of coffee. Merry, second Christmas, he mumbled. Wayne laughed. I don't think that's a holiday. It should be. It definitely shouldn't. Breakfast was quieter than the day before. Not sad. Just slower. Everyone seemed to know the visit was coming to an end. Eventually I carried my overnight bag into the hallway. Linda immediately frowned. I don't like that bag. I have to go eventually. I know. She walked over and hugged me tightly. You come back anytime. I mean that. So do I. When she stepped back, she was smiling, although her eyes looked suspiciously emotional again. Robert shook my hand before pulling me into a brief hug as well. It was good having you here. It was good being here. No. He smiled. You fit here. Those words stayed with me. Then Evan appeared. So. He crossed his arms dramatically. You owe me a rematch. I thought we already played. You got lucky. I lost half the games. You won the important one. I don't think that's true. It is in my head. We both laughed. He hugged me quickly. Drive safe. I will. Wayne picked up my overnight bag before I could protest. I've got it. I can carry my own bag. I know. You keep doing that. Doing what? Helping before I ask. He smiled. I've noticed you don't always ask. The drive back toward the city felt completely different from the drive out. Neither of us rushed to fill the silence. The roads were almost empty. Snow still covered everything. Christmas music played quietly through the speakers. About halfway home, Wayne spoke. My mother's going to text you. I laughed. She asked for my number. I know. You gave it to her? I asked first. I appreciate that. She's probably already planning next Christmas. I wouldn't be surprised. He smiled without taking his eyes off the road. Neither would I. The skyline slowly appeared ahead of us. Reality. Work. Regular life. Part of me wasn't ready for it. Wayne pulled up outside my apartment building. For a moment, neither of us reached for the doors. Well, I guess this is it. For now. I nodded. For now. He handed me my bag. Then hesitated. I'm glad you came. So am I. No. He looked at me. I mean, I'm really glad. I smiled. I know. Another quiet pause settled between us. Then I decided to stop overthinking. Can I ask you something? Of course. When you invited me. Yeah? Was it only because your mother wanted me there? He smiled. No. I thought so. I wanted you there before I even asked her. My heart skipped. You did? He nodded. I just needed an excuse that wouldn't make you uncomfortable. I laughed softly. So your mother became your excuse. Exactly. I looked down for a second before meeting his eyes again. I'm glad you found one. He smiled. So am I. This time neither of us looked away. Finally I laughed. We're doing it again. What? One of those conversations that doesn't want to end. He laughed too. We really are. I reached for the door. Then stopped. Wayne? Yeah? Would you? I smiled nervously. Want to have dinner sometime? Outside of work. His answer came before I even finished. Yes. No family. He laughed. Just us. I'd like that. So would I. For a second, either of us moved. Then we shared a brief hug before I stepped out of the car. Simple. Natural. When I looked back from the sidewalk, Wayne was still there. He lowered the window. Oh. I walked back over. What? You forgot something. I did. He pointed toward the passenger seat. The green scarf Linda had given me. I laughed. I guess I did. He handed it to me. I'd hate for my mother to think I let you leave without it. I don't think she'd forgive either of us. Definitely not. I wrapped the scarf around my neck. It was warm. Comfortable. Already carrying memories. See you soon? Wayne asked. I smiled. Definitely. He nodded once before driving away. I stood there for another minute, watching his car disappear around the corner. When I finally walked into my apartment, the silence felt different than it had a few days earlier. Not empty. Peaceful. My phone buzzed before I had even taken off my coat. Linda, did Wayne get you home safely? A second message followed immediately. And don't forget your family now. I laughed out loud. Then another notification appeared. This one from Wayne. Dinner Friday? I looked around my apartment. The framed photo from Christmas already sat on my kitchen counter beside the green scarf. For the first time in years, coming home didn't feel like returning to loneliness. It felt like carrying a piece of another home with me. I smiled and typed back. I'd love to. Sometimes the best Christmas gift isn't something wrapped under a tree. Sometimes it's meeting the people who quietly change what the word home means.